Chuck Schumer now says his comments were directed at Republicans. He says they, not the two justices appointed by President Trump, stand to pay a price for decisions on abortion rights cases. Joining us now at a Fox News at Night exclusive, Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky. Good to have you back with us, sir.
Glad to be here, Shannon.
Okay, I want to play a little recap for those who may have missed how we got here.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
Now, I should not have used the words I used yesterday. They didn't come out the way I intended to. My point was that there would be political consequences for President Trump and Senate Republicans if the Supreme Court, with the newly confirmed justices, stripped away a woman's right to choose.
So he says you know that he was not threatening anyone and that this is being manufactured into something that didn't actually happen. Your response?
I want to associate myself with the remarks of Lawrence Tribe. As a Supreme Court reporter, you know that he's probably the most prominent liberal law professor in America, who issued a statement yesterday saying what Schumer did was completely inappropriate and he ought to apologize. Now, if that was an apology, it wasn't much of an apology. He named the justices by name. He used words that generally are associated with inciting violence. Chuck Schumer ought to know better than that. He didn't just show up yesterday. It reminds me of the Speaker of the House tearing up the President's State of the Union right after he finished speaking. We have a behavioral problem, and I think the leaders of Congress owe it to the American people to act like adults and to not engage in shenanigans like going over in front of the Supreme Court with a rowdy mob and threatening the justices by name. That wasn't enough of an apology to satisfy me, and I don't think any of our colleagues either.
So the Chief Justice issued a statement, rather rare for him yesterday, but Schumer's office followed up and said it was essentially hypocritical because President Trump has said things about justices and the Chief Justice hasn't called them out. Now, he did call him out for referring to people as Obama judges, but they say he has engaged in language regarding Justices Ginsburg and Sotomayor in recent days, and that the chief is not playing it straight down the line because he didn't call the president on those statements.
Well, the president wasn't over in front of the Supreme Court building naming justices and threatening them with some kind of consequences. Presidents have criticized Supreme Courts off and on. I remember President Obama shaking his finger at the justices during the State of the Union speech over a decision they made. But that's quite different from joining a mob scene over in front of the Supreme Court building, mentioning Supreme Court justices by name and using language that is typically used to bring about some kind of violent reaction.
Okay, you've been busy this afternoon, all of you on the Senate side, passing funding related to the coronavirus. At the same time, there's been plenty of criticism of this administration, of Republicans not getting things done correctly. There is an ad that is running on Facebook. We want to play some of this, and it says essentially on its face, there's text on the screen for this, and it says, the Trump administration would rather pad the pockets of drug manufacturers than provide access to an affordable coronavirus vaccine. What can you say about where we are with vaccine makers, drug makers, big pharma in this conversation?
Well, what I can say is in a time of intense partisanship, Republicans and Democrats came together in a matter of days, reached an agreement with the administration, and just passed in the Senate, after having passed in the House, a bipartisan, bicameral response based upon the best evidence we got from healthcare professionals who are telling us what they think they need. So I think the Congress overcame all of the partisanship going on. I don't know about that particular ad, but I can tell you those of us who work here and who were elected to come here and represent the American people rose above all of this temptation to engage in partisan jabs and did the right thing for the country.
Okay, something else that's going on in the Senate that some view as partisan is this investigation that Senator Johnson is heading up with respect to Burisma and Hunter Biden. He says he's been trying to do this quietly. He wanted to get a subpoena authorized, but there have been leaks to the media and otherwise. Adam Schiff, who was the impeachment manager, heads up the House Intelligence Agency, said this: "I'm concerned to see that in the Senate there seems to be a renewed interest in furthering these bogus Russian narratives through the use of their investigative powers. I think it's so deeply destructive to be effectively working in concert with Russian propaganda artists." Now, there's a Republican speaking out as well from your side of the aisle. Here's Senator Mitt Romney.
There's no question but that the appearance of looking into Burisma and Hunter Biden appears political. And I think people are tired of these kind of political investigations.
So what do you make of the characterization that what Senator Johnson and others are doing is all about politics?
Well, I think it's worth taking a look at, and I don't tell my committee chairman what to investigate. Senator Johnson's very responsible, not inclined to be overly partisan on everything that comes along. And he's been trying, as he indicated, to kind of quietly look at this for some time before Biden's comeback yesterday, in which, made him more likely the nominee. Look, if you become the front runner, you come under a lot of scrutiny, but from the press, from both sides. Joe's been around a long time. He knows that this sort of thing will be looked at when you become the likely nominee of your party.
So with that now coming down the pike, Senator Lindsey Graham has said he actually thinks Bernie Sanders is a better matchup for the president because there's more of a contrast about their policies on the economy and other things. Are you worried about Joe Biden being at the top of the ticket?
Well, I think we ought not to be pulling for any particular nominee. I think they're all pretty much hard left. And regardless of which one the Democrats finally choose to be their standard bearer, I think the arguments are going to be largely the same. What kind of America do you want to have? A capitalist country, or one that's going full square, straight in to the left? And they all got pulled that way, including Joe Biden, during these primaries. So I think we have plenty of issues to run on in the fall, no matter which one they pick.
All right, quickly before we go, I want to again touch on the issue with Senator Schumer. Senator Hawley and many others are now co-sponsoring a resolution to call him out for essentially attempting to intimidate Supreme Court justices. Does that resolution go anywhere? Do you expect some Democrats to get on board?
Well, I certainly respect Senator Hawley, and I understand his revulsion at what we saw yesterday on the part of Senator Schumer over in front of the Supreme Court. The best way to express that, we're discussing among ourselves, and many members are speaking out. I certainly did today, which is what we were talking about earlier.
All right, keep us up to date. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, great to have you with us.
Glad to be back.